Hello, hello. I am so excited for this episode. My name is Sarah Carter, and I am the host of this podcast, She's Doing All Right. And today, I am talking with my friend and inspiration, Gabby Kislenko. She is the creator and the baker behind the Cookie Dough Diaries, an entirely dairy-free baking blog. Her recipes are so simple and so good, and I make the blueberry muffins all the time. She is self-taught in both baking and in food photography, and she has amassed over 156,000 followers on her Instagram and over 41,000 followers on TikTok. This episode went by so fast, so I'm very excited for you to hear it. We talk all about learning food photography from YouTube, speaking kindly about where you started, becoming an entrepreneur during a pandemic, imposter syndrome, and charging your worth. And of course, we talked about why she started Cookie Dough Diaries, and we discuss a little bit about diet culture around baked goods. And I couldn't let her go without getting her top tips on how to bake a perfect cookie. So stick around for that. And in the meantime, please welcome Gabby to She's Doing All Right. Do you only use natural light for your photography?
For my client, yeah, because it's just so much more beautiful for food. It looks so different. Like I've done a few where I use artificial light and I just can't get it to look. I mean, you can edit it and make it look like a little bit better, but I can't get it to look like as natural and like glowy as I want it to be. So that's for fair. Clients, I almost always try to do it that way.
I mean, I make like all your recipes and try to take a photo of the food. I'm like, this is not shareable, really.
No, I know. It's the sun is like the only thing that makes it, like when I take pictures in my kitchen, like not that I take photos, but like if I'm like taking a picture, a story or something, I'm like, this looks horrible. Like no one's going to want to make this. If I take this picture on my beige, like yellow countertop, it's so ugly.
They always look so good though.
Yeah.
And the food is always like, I mean, the photos that you take make me want to go make the recipe.
Oh,
so I think it's doing its job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You were completely self-taught.
Yes.
With photography.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about how you got into that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of I think it's a little bit different than a lot of people in that space that I know, at least, because there are some pretty well-known courses for food photography that almost everyone I know has taken. And I don't know, I think I was just like, maybe I was just too cheap. I didn't have I just didn't really have the money to take a course. It was like quite a few, it was like almost $1,000 this course. So I was like, I'm going to just try and see what I can do by myself. So I had a camera from work, my old job, and I started using that. And I essentially just watched YouTube videos and
YouTube is such a good resource.
I don't know what I would do without YouTube.
I know.
Honestly.
You should be making your own videos and re-uploading them to YouTube. And then you've got like another platform. As if you need more on your
I mean, I do have some videos on YouTube, but they're just like the videos that go on my blog and there's no talking. They're pretty like standard. But yeah, so I essentially just like watched YouTube videos and played around with it. I mean, the first time I ever tried to take photos of food, I have the photos on my phone and they were just on my iPhone 8 and it was a recipe of someone else's that I made, like just like a recipe that I found on the internet. And I kind of like looked at another food blogger and I was like, oh, she took a picture of the cake like this. So I'm like angling the cake and like the light was horrible. Like it was just like not good. And like I said, an iPhone 8, like it just did not look good, but it's cute when I look back at it. I'm like, that's cool. Like I remember being kind of proud. Like I took some little like pieces of cookie dough and I sprinkled it around the plate and like, I was doing my best and it was good. And like with before and after type things, that's like one thing I'm pretty passionate about, like never like, can I say shit?
Yeah.
Never
say whatever you want.
Never like shit talking my old self.
Yes.
Because like that was the best I knew how to do back then.
Yes.
And some of the pictures, of course, they've gotten better. And that's cool because it means that I'm like getting better.
I love that.
But I will never look back and be like, oh, that was so ugly. Like, I think it's cute. I think it's like really cute of me that like, I thought that was such a good picture. And it was at the time and whatever. So anyways, so I just played around with this camera, watched YouTube videos. There's a lot of tears for sure.
I bet.
Because I just, you have a vision in your head of what you want it to look like. and it just doesn't. And you see other people doing it and you're like, why can they do it and I can't do it? And
I know that so well.
Yeah, so I think I would have probably been able to honestly learn a lot quicker if I had done the course. Mm-hmm. So in hindsight, like if I had, I think it's like $700 this course. If I had that just laying around, I might have just done it. Mm-hmm. Because I would have just had saved myself a lot of tears, maybe.
I think that's the biggest thing is like the cost of those courses is because of the time mm-hmm. that someone's put in.
Yeah.
I just watched the story of, like, it was just her Instagram stories of this one woman I follow. And she was saying how she was selling out courses every single month on like business growth. And she's like a business coach essentially. And she was saying how at the same time, she felt so guilty for charging so much for something that comes easily to her.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she's put in like 20 years or 15 years of experience and her own trial and error.
Yeah.
That's what is included in the cost.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure. And I completely agree. Like this course, I mean, I didn't take it, but like I am not, by no means would I complain that it's like too expensive. Mm-hmm. I don't think it is. I think it is an amazing resource and it should be that much. Yeah. It just was too much for me. I didn't have the money laying around, but I completely agree. Like that's years of them teaching themselves and crying and being frustrated and figuring out like what works and what doesn't. So I think those courses are like a great investment if you have the money. Mm-hmm. And if you don't though, like it doesn't mean you can't learn.
Yes.
I think that was one thing that was really hard for me to kind of accept at first, like is that everyone who was successful had taken these courses and I felt like I would never be successful at the beginning. I really felt like I would never ever be a good photographer if I didn't take the course because I had no evidence. I had no people. Like I'm like a very like I have to see someone who has experienced a similar thing. There was no one who I could find who was like, oh no, I never took a course. It was like everyone had taken a course and I was like, I'm never gonna be a good photographer. But
have you found people now? Like you've created really cool friends from the social media pages and stuff like that. Right?
Yeah. I have a really good little community of food bloggers and food photographers that I feel super lucky because I mean, I even have friends who like I have one friend who we talk every day. She's like literally one of my best friends and I have met her in person once. Shout out to Kelly from Bacon Bacon. But yeah, and like she lives in like another country and that's amazing. Just, we bonded and started like got along and whatever. So there's quite a few people like that. And, now I've found a few people who are like, I didn't take a course and whatever. But back then I think I was definitely more like insecure about myself and I just needed, you need someone to like relate to and all that.
Show you it can be done.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Show me it can be done. So yeah, that
years ago, I remember, so for those who don't know, I was Gabby's old massage therapist. Yeah. And I remember you saying how you wanted to leave whatever job you were in because it was just like you were crying every day, you hated it. And so how long has that been? Because I don't remember when that conversation was, but when did you start the food photography?
So this was a COVID thing.
Okay.
So
it wasn't actually that long ago then?
Not very long ago. So I didn't lose my job, sorry. But I got to start working from home and we were all at home.
Right, okay.
And so I just had more time in the day and as we all did. I mean, maybe not all of us, but like a lot of people were just stuck at home. So that was 2020. That was May of 2020, I want to say. So shortly after the pandemic first started.
Okay.
But I had been unhappy at my old job for over 2 years by that point already. So I had kind of like reached the breaking point of like, I cannot do this anymore.
And you had told me, I remember in that, I was asking like, how do you start something? Like, because I was wanting to leave massage, but I wasn't sure that I wanted to yet. And so I remember asking you like, what do you do for pricing and all this stuff? I think at the time I was thinking about doing social media management or something like that. And you were like, you do your research and you fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And like you create your bundles and then you pitch them. So did you have a lot of imposter syndrome when you were doing that? Like if someone came back with a lower price or wanted to barter, how did you how did you learn to like stick to your price and like being like, no, I know I'm worth this?
That definitely came with practice, I would say. Definitely had some major imposter syndrome at the beginning. I didn't feel like at the beginning I was like, am I worth this much? And that led to me underpricing myself and definitely not charging what I was worth at the very beginning. Luckily, again, with the community of people that I had around me, I was able to talk with them and just figure out if I was charging enough money.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like good resources out there that show kind of like how much you roughly should be charging, but people are very hard, like it's hard to get numbers, like solid numbers from people sometimes. People are very private about that, which is fair, but it helps everyone else if you're able to be a little more open, at least with your colleagues in the same industry about it. Like, I have no problem being like, yeah, you should charge this much to like a friend who's doing the same thing. But yeah, for sure. At the beginning, I had no idea if I was worth what I was charging. Didn't charge enough, and slowly I started to work. I wasn't charging enough for about 2 months when I first started, and I had first quit my job, and I was kind of just like desperate. Like, I would just take whatever because I needed to pay my bills. Like, there was nothing really to fall back on. And so but then at that point I was charging so little that I ended up working way too much, and just to make like a little amount of money just to cover my my mortgage kind of thing, and food and whatever. So I think that was kind of the point where I was like, okay, this isn't gonna work. Like, I can't work this many hours and still work on my blog. Like, this was just freelancing stuff because my blog wasn't even making money at this point. When I quit my job, I was still earning $0 for working 40 hours a week on my blog, and then trying to do another 20 to 30 hours kind of thing on like client projects that would actually make money. So I think I did have imposter syndrome, and after a while, now I have absolutely, I mean, when it comes to client stuff, I have absolutely no, like, it's gone. And
That's amazing.
I think I exactly what I told you, just faked it till I made it. And now I put my price out there, and if people don't want to pay it, I'm like, okay, that's fine. See you later. You know, someone else will want to pay it, and I'm not, like, I'm worth more than this. And that's,
I hope you find someone that fits your budget. Or like, I'd love to talk to you again when you have a higher budget.
Exactly. And again, obviously that is coming from a place of privilege. Like, now my blog makes money, and I have one steady client who I work with every month. And so I don't have to worry about, like, but at the very beginning, you don't have that privilege. Like, you're grasping at whatever you can get, and you just kind of need any work and any paycheck.
And that always kind of goes in hand with the experience, because like, you wouldn't be the photographer and businesswoman you are now without the experience of all of those things. Because if you had just jumped in charging a high rate, you wouldn't necessarily be able to relate to like someone who's just starting and being like, I don't know if I'm charging undercharging, right?
Yeah, for sure. And like, I'm happy that I didn't have like a delusion where I was like, oh my goodness, I can charge this much and whatever.
Me and my iPhone 8.
Yeah, me and my iPhone 8. But I was like, it's just, I'm glad I wasn't like that, because I was definitely a little less confident. But yeah, and I mean, my work is worth more now in a way too, because of, like, we were talking about, like, the experience and the hours put into like not perfecting, no one's ever perfecting, but like getting better. So, but it really was just like time, like, fake it till you make it is my life motto. Like, truly, that was how I got to where I am. Like, I think that was, I don't know, at the beginning, I always knew I could do it. I just felt like, when am I going to be able to do it? Like, it was like, I can't do it now, but I know I can eventually do it. So
that's always like such a hard one for me, is like, I know I can do it, and then it comes down to like, put the work in and actually take the risk. And then that's where it's like, this is like a lot scarier than I anticipated it being.
For sure. And I think like, that's kind of one thing funny enough, I was never really scared.
Good.
Never.
It was fit. It was like,
I just knew. I had this feeling. I just knew I could do it. And it was hard. And at the beginning, like you said, like you just don't know if you're like worth it or good enough or whatever. But I knew that at some point I would be good enough, and at some point I would be worth it. And like, I don't know. So I was never really scared that it would fail. Like, it was just not an option. It was just not an option for it to fail.
Has that been like a mindset that's kind of been your whole life? Like, were you pretty entrepreneurial as a kid? Oh, I said the word right.
You did. Oh my goodness. Yes.
Or were you like more creative? Like, because this is like such a perfect blend.
Yeah.
To do creative and like running your own business.
Yeah. No, funny enough, I was absolutely, actually, I was the opposite. Spent my entire life saying I was not creative. And spent my entire life saying, my entire career, I guess, saying like, I would never, even in university, like I went to business school, I took a marketing degree, and in business school, there's a lot of entrepreneur type people, right? And a lot of people I went to school with are just like, yeah, I'm going to start this business and that business. And I was just like, good luck. Like, I would never start a business on my own. Like, I need a stable paycheck. I need a stable 9 to 5. I don't want to work outside of 9 to 5. Like, I was so dead set on never ever owning my own business or being my own boss. I felt like I was going to be a boss at some point of like, you know, a CEO of something, or like
someone else's
CEO,
trusted
but
right
like,
hand.
like the president of some company or whatever, director of something. Like, I knew I was going to be up there, but I thought that was going to be for a company, like a large corporation was kind of my thinking. And so it was kind of the opposite. Like, when I had all that free time and I kind of discovered food blogging and food photography, it was like, when I told people that I was quitting my job, people who knew me very well, I told them I was quitting my job to do this. They were shocked. Like, they were like, this is the most out of character thing I have ever seen you do. Like, ever. So
funny.
Yeah. So it was actually, not something that I thought I would ever do or be comfortable with. And now it's like, oh God, I would not trade it for the world. I can't imagine work. I mean, it works great for other people to work for someone else, but now that I have experienced this, I could never do it.
Yeah. That's the Aries energy. You are Aries, aren't you?
I'm an Aries. Yeah. Fiery.
Well, even when you're saying like, oh, I'm like going to be like CEO, like I always know like I'm going to be high up there. I'm just like, that's like every Aries I know says like, oh, I'm going to be like very high up there. And then at some point something clicks that they're like, I'm going to be my own boss. Yeah. So I don't have to work for anyone else.
No one's the boss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
Yeah. Definitely a strong Aries vibes.
So when it came to like making cookies, and what made you decide to go into like just cookie dough recipes specifically? Because I know your website has like other things. There's some smoothies and waffles and stuff like that, which are very good. People should definitely try those. But what made you want to stick with the cookie dough and dairy-free specifically?
Yeah, so I am allergic to dairy, and I have been my entire life. The allergy has kind of progressively gotten worse. It's not anaphylactic, which thank goodness. I can't imagine how hard that would be. But I have always just not had dairy in my life. And so when I would bake, this is before the blog, I would be Googling like, oh yeah, I really want some dairy, I want some chocolate chip cookies. So I'd Google like dairy-free chocolate chip cookies, or dairy-free cheesecake, or dairy-free whatever I was making. And there was never anything, or like if there was, it was vegan and gluten-free also. Yes, and totally. You know, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I didn't need anything gluten-free. Yeah. I literally just needed it to be dairy-free. Yeah. And I could eat eggs, like it's fine. A lot of things vegan and dairy-free go hand in hand, but that was something I just kept running into, and I found, or they were healthy. It's like dairy-free. It was like healthy chocolate chip cookies, and it's like, I don't want healthy chocolate chip cookies. I just want regular ones.
I love that point on your blog in the About Me section, and it's like, nothing here is guilt-free because guilt is not an ingredient. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I love that so much. Yeah. Because that's so true. Everything you look for, like gluten-free. Oh, here's your healthy gluten-free cookies. It's like, I can be gluten-free. I just want something fun and tasty.
Exactly. Yeah. I can be gluten-free and not be trying to eat healthy for this specific purpose.
Like,
I mean,
if you're going to have a cookie, have a cookie.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's definitely like I make healthy cookies sometimes, and like they're great, but that's not what I wanted. And I felt like it wasn't fair that just because you have an allergy, you have to eat vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, nut-free, like all the things, healthy, sugar-free. And it's like, I didn't want that. So, and the guilt is not an ingredient. I saw that somewhere years ago and I don't remember where. Maybe it was like some Pinterest graphic or something. I have no idea, but I like love that so much that it is just like another thing that I take. Like I keep that in my back pocket for anytime I start to feel any sort of like food, like, cause that's another part of my kind of, I don't know, my blog, my brand, what you would call it. But I do not believe in diets. And I mean, don't get me wrong. If you can't eat something or you're following a specific diet because of a medical condition or whatever, of course, like that is great. But I spent a lot of my life dieting, and I lost a lot of like years of happiness and joy that I would have had if I wasn't worrying about being guilty about eating this. And it's like, you didn't commit a crime. You just ate a cookie. It's fine, you know, like, but that's not how society treats it, right?
Yeah. So I just talked about that with, like a couple episodes back from when this one airs, with a friend about raising kids and how we were raised in such a diet culture. Yeah. And how thankfully we kind of seem to be moving away from it, but still like magazines are still pushing it, right? Like I feel like collectively we're kind of leaning away from it, but magazines are still really pushing it. Some headlines, it's still in like anti-aging, fat-free, like all this stuff, right? Yeah. And so trying to raise kids and not be like, yeah, we're not going to worry about that.
Yeah, for sure. But, that's like a huge priority for me too. When we have kids one day, it's just like, I do not want them to have any guilt or fear of food. And because and like 90s kids, we were bombarded with that stuff, and it was like, it was horrible. And it is still, like you said, it is getting better because we're more aware of it as a society, I think. But the vast majority of people are still very much not totally aware of it. And people make comments all the time. I get messages that are like, oh, are you eating that? That's like causes cancer, or that's going to be, oh, how do you eat that without, you know, like, I wish I could eat like that and look like you. Gosh. And it's like, why are we commenting on what I look like? Like, this is, you know, so that kind of stuff. I mean, I know people are, I don't know, it's a complicated issue. People have been taught this since they were born, right?
So and it goes back generations. Like,
oh yeah,
most of us have grandparents that are raised either during the Great Depression or shortly after. Yeah. Right. So then, it's like, well, now we've got like that lax scarcity mindset and
almond moms too.
Yes. Yeah. Because then it's like, okay, it's the overflux of everything, and then nothing, and then everything. It's just yeah.
So it's going to take generations, I think, to fix, but we're on our way. But yeah, so that's a big thing for me, is like, I really don't want any of that diet culture bullshit near my food or my blog. And it's, I don't know. Don't even remember how I got on that topic, but the guilt is not an ingredient. That's what it was.
Making cookies.
Cookies. Question. Okay, yes. So getting back to that.
I enjoyed the tangent, so it's good.
So I would Google things, and it was not giving me what I wanted. And then when the pandemic started and I was baking more, that's kind of when I started looking at it. I'm just trying to piece it all together here. But yeah, I kind of thought, why don't I, like, it seems like there's not really that much out there for dairy-free people who want to bake things like myself. And that's where that came from, was just like what I wanted, and what was missing in online for me at the time was dairy-free baked goods. So, and I love cookies. Yes. Like, I love them. And when I was younger, like a teenager kind of thing, that was the only thing I really knew how to bake or kind of felt comfortable baking, was like chocolate chip cookies. And it was just, I just thought it was the best thing in the world. And I still do. I still think cookie dough and cookies are like their joy. Like, that's like happiness to me. They soothe the soul. They really do. They always fill a crack. They fill, like, you know, some people say that whole, I forget how it goes, but it's like a cup of tea can cure anything or whatever. It's like, to me, that's like a cookie. Like a cookie can just cure. I mean, I never have just like one cookie, but a couple cookies, a plate of cookies can cure any bad day. And yeah, so that was kind of like where that came from. And then it's, I just love desserts. I love sweets. And I think it was also a little bit of me kind of like rebelling against my former, this is getting deeper than it has to, but like rebelling against rebelling against my former self, who wouldn't let myself have desserts. And you know, I wasn't allowed by myself to have that, because that was gonna, you know, make me gain weight or whatever it was. And so it was almost like a, you know, F you to like my old disordered thoughts, and being like, no, I'm gonna just make desserts every day now.
Yeah.
You know,
like share them with other people.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm gonna encourage other people to do the same. So yeah, so I think that's kind of where it came from. And then the other things like French toast, waffles, those things, that's just for fun and variety. And yeah, can't always eat cookies all day every day, I guess.
Gotta have breakfast in there.
Yeah, at some point I gotta have breakfast. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you find that, because I've seen some of the comments, some like normally they're pretty good, but you do get some trolley comments.
Yes.
And you have like a following of like 150 something on Instagram. Do you find that you get a fair amount of trolley comments talking about the ingredients or anything in particular?
I think it's a little bit, I mean, the more I grow, definitely the more troll comments there are in general. TikTok is pretty bad for it.
Yeah, TikTok's way worse.
TikTok is so much worse. Instagram, I think I get the odd one, but not much. A lot of the times it's people replying to a story. But I don't get too many bad things on Instagram, luckily, about that. But yeah, TikTok is pretty brutal. So yeah, people on there will say some crazy things. But actually not overall in terms of like diet culture stuff, once in a while. I wouldn't say it's like super frequent that I get those types of comments. Most of the comments that I get in general are very positive and like,
this looks so freaking good.
Yeah, for sure.
Does the social media stuff come easily to you? Like, was that something you already kind of did before?
No. So that's another reason why when I told people I was doing this, they were like, who are you? And what have you done with Gabby? Because I never used my own personal Instagram account. I like rarely posted on it. I didn't like scrolling. I mean, this was only like 3 years ago. So people were already like deep in social media, and I just was not. I was not posting on my story. This is all my personal. So when I started an Instagram account for food, it was just like, what? Like, what? Who are you? Like, you don't. So, and I don't love the Instagram and social media side of my job. Sometimes it's great. It's not all bad. I don't hate it, but it's harder for me because I find it very draining. I find it, like there's a constant need to keep up and, you know, please the algorithm, please, you know, Mark Zuckerberg and like whatever the Instagram guy's name is, like, and I just don't like that. Like, that just doesn't sit well with me, but I do it anyways because it's part of my job, so I have to. But yeah, and even just like, it's a lot of stimulation, like constant comments, and I don't have any of my notifications turned on because I would lose my mind.
I don't even have that many people, like, if when I open the apps, there's not that ton of like notifications. And I will never understand people that can have it on, because I'm pretty sure I have ADHD, like at least some level of it, and I'm like, I would not be off my phone, and it's already something I struggle with.
Right. So because you get one notification, you get away from it, and then you get another notification. It's just like,
turn it off, make it stop.
It was way too much. Yeah. So it can be overwhelming for sure, the social media side, and demanding, especially for someone who doesn't really love social media. And but it's fine. It's the way I connect with the community the most, which is what I love. Like, I love being able to see people make my recipes, and that's all thanks to social media, because that's where, you know, they'll send me pictures or send me a DM and tell me that they loved something. And that is my favorite part about it. But overall, it doesn't 100% come easily to me, I wouldn't say.
That's fair.
So even like, I have to kind of not force myself, but I have to tell myself, like, okay, like, Gab, you haven't put anything on your story. You haven't shown your face on your story in how long? Like, you have to go on there. And sometimes I'll even go on there and be like, I have nothing to talk about here, but like, I guess I'll just ramble about something, and I'll go on and show just to show my face.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I kind of have to like force myself in a way to like be present, because otherwise I'll just.
Yes, I know. I always find that it's like a few days a month that I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
and
me
then
too.
Other times it's not.
Yeah,
Actually,
it's
like,
weird.
Not to get diving deep into that, but I've been doing cycle syncing.
Oh yeah,
cycle syncing, and it's so funny because the app I use has like, oh, like you're gonna feel really outgoing today, and I find that those days that I'm like outgoing, like whatever phase of my cycle I'm in, that is when I'm like on social media. I'm posting like 5 times a day, still getting work done. Like it can be cloudy and I just feel like I'm on cloud 9.
Really?
And it's like the other 3 weeks, it's like, yeah, you're not gonna hear from me.
I don't exist. I'm going to crawl into my hole and not come out until my next luteal phase.
Exactly. Totally. No, exactly that though. Like when I look at it, I'm like, oh, there's a pattern here. Okay.
Oh my gosh, I should look to see if that's my pattern too, because I'm the same way. I get like 1 or 2 days where I'm like, let's go. What am I posting today?
Yeah.
You know?
You're like creative now.
Yeah.
Do it all now.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of the creative part, how do you do you have a checklist of everything that you need to film? Because obviously when you're creating the videos and stuff for TikTok or Instagram or something, or even for the blog, do you have different ideas and storyboards that you're trying to film for? Or do you just film all the content, create the recipe, create everything, and then you kind of clip stuff together later?
That's basically how it is. Okay. Yeah, I would love to be organized enough to have a list and a storyboard, or like I've never made one of those. Okay. I would love to be that organized, but I just am not. I'm kind of winging it. Okay. It feels like some days.
That's like, amazing, because it looks so clean.
Thank you.
Your whole, especially the Instagram though, it's just like so aesthetically pleasing and delicious looking.
Thank you. So it's like, that's so nice.
Yeah, I always assume that you're like, okay, today I'm filming brownies, so I'm gonna make sure I get these shots, and this is gonna be my idea of what I say.
No, I definitely used to do like in terms of like an actual, like I would have a shot list when I first started, and if I'm doing something for a client, I will have a shot list to make sure that I do hit like every shot that they want. But for myself now, I think I've just done it so many times that I know the shots that I'm going to get. And I know exactly, like I've shot brownies hundreds of times, it feels like. And so I just know, and but at the beginning, I do think I was a little more like organized. But yeah, editing is a beautiful thing, because it just makes it look very planned and and a lot more organized than it actually is.
Do you find that it's easier to shoot for clients' work versus yourself? Like if it's your own recipe?
It is way easier to do my own. Yeah, way easier. I'm not as worried about it being, perfect. And if the lighting, like I try to shoot in that area we were just talking about, and if the lighting isn't beautiful and perfect in my own shots, it's like whatever, like it's fine. Like you'll notice on my page, some of them are in this beautiful direct light and some of them are not. And that was just a cloudy day. I mean, we haven't had sun. This is the first day we had sun in like 6 days. So it's like,
so sad.
It is what it is. I know. It makes me really sad.
We all got so used to it too. We're like, it's February. And it's like 10 degrees and it's like minus 37.
I know. It's like, oh, you're late February. You were supposed to be here a month ago, but okay. But yeah, so the pressure is just like a lot different when it's my own stuff, and I can just kind of bang it out a lot quicker. But client stuff is fun, and I don't do a ton of it. Like I said, I work for one like consistent client. She's amazing, but like it's just a lot more. You're getting paid to do it from someone, and you want it to be perfect. So there's just a lot more pressure. Yeah, but it's good pressure.
Okay, I want to know the creative stuff and like the length of time it takes to go from like coming up with the idea for a recipe, testing it, like how many times you have to test it, making it, photographing it, photographing it, writing the blog, and then getting all the content, and then publishing. Because that feels to me like that's a lot of steps.
Oh God, it's so much. It is so much. Yeah.
I'm like, did I overcomplicate it, or is it actually this complicated?
It is really. It actually, when you say that you overcomplicate it, it's interesting, because I think most people who picture what I do undercomplicate it. Like they're like, oh, so you just think of a recipe and you just go and take some pictures and like some cute little pics and put them on the blog and then write a little, it's like, no, that's not how it works.
Every time I make anybody's recipe and it's like a quarter tablespoon of this, or it's like the worst or the funniest to me is when it's like a quarter cup plus 2 tablespoons. I'm like, how did you get to that measurement?
Yeah, it's
like,
so specific.
How many times? Like, you're a scientist.
Yeah.
You're a creative scientist.
Yeah. Honestly, it is science. Baking, specifically baking, I mean, cooking, you have a little more leeway.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm not I don't make like those types of recipes. Like I don't make like a pasta recipe or whatever, but I would imagine that it's a lot less, you know, it's a lot harder to mess up. You know, if you add 1.5 tablespoons of oil to the pan versus 2 tablespoons, it's going to be fine. Yeah. Baking is not like that. So yeah, it's a lot more specific. It depends. It very much depends on the recipe, and this has changed, but I would honestly say it takes like, I mean, it's so hard to come up with like an actual hour amount, but maybe 30 hours.
Oh my God.
Or more. Maybe more to come up with like all the things of one recipe. I will say now I am super lucky that I'm at a point where I no longer have to do a lot of the sort of like admin things. Like I have someone who she's great and she helps me with all my pins. So she makes all my pins for Pinterest, and she assembles my blog posts. So once I've taken the photos and everything, she like writes this is getting very detailed, but she writes like all the
details are good.
alt text, and like she writes the descriptions and everything and puts it into the post. And then I actually also have another person who writes the body of the post.
Okay.
Now, so I have like I guess ghostwriter, blog post writer. So that is hugely helpful, and that saves me a lot more time and makes it so that that allows me to be able to do more of the stuff that I'm the best at. Rather than like I'm great at writing, it's fine, but I'm not great. I don't mean to be I'm so great, but like
it's fun. You are. You're allowed to say you're so great. You're allowed just to like celebrate yourself.
Thank you.
You made it. You were the one that took it to being a successful like money-making business, right? Like you hired someone after you were making the money. So I think you're allowed to say you're great.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I hired people like mainly this year. That's been my focus. So,
that's amazing.
So yeah, it allows me to focus more on what I love, which is creating the recipe, testing the recipe. Like sometimes you have to test a recipe. Sometimes you can do it like 2 tests at this point, because maybe I have a recipe that I'm basing it off of, and I just need a few tweaks to it to make it something else. But if it's something from scratch that's totally different than anything I've done, maybe 3 to 5 times you test the recipe, maybe more. Like there have definitely been recipes where I've tested it more than 5 times, and that's also like expensive because food is so expensive. Yeah. So yeah, and it takes a lot, but I feel super excited now that I can focus more on making more recipes and putting more recipes out there because I have help. So yeah, that's a really good place to be in right now. But yeah,
that's amazing because I feel like I look through your blog and I'm just like, there's so much here.
Yeah.
Like all just like a little peek into like one corner of her brain.
Yeah. It's wild. It goes, it takes so much more time than I think people realize, for sure, to come up with a post. And yeah, that's why when people on social media are like, give me the recipe, like why isn't the recipe written, on social media? It's like, because there are so many details and so much work that went into this. You have to go look at like all the details and all the, tips and tricks and stuff like that go into like the post. I think most people skip right over the writing, but
I highly recommend that everyone should read through at least one full recipe on each blog. Yeah. Because like after a while they are similar tips and tricks, right? And that actually
Same
was
structure.
You kind of get to know, okay, this is the baker's style, so this is how I can recreate their recipe. Yeah. I make a lot of your recipes and I butcher so many other recipes, but because I've learned to follow yours so well, like my husband literally will just be like, did Gabby give you these? I'm like, no, I made them. He's like, man, like her recipes are so good. Like you don't even mess them up, which sounds like you're being like, honestly.
Wow.
Yeah. He's like, this is
you didn't even mess up.
Yeah. But it's kind of like, I don't know the right word, but it shows how well you're writing and like explaining things through.
Oh,
right?
thanks.
So
that means a lot. Yeah.
If I can follow it and not mess
For
it
sure.
up.
It's honestly, I know what you mean though, because I have a couple blogs that are my go-to for like, oh, what's for dinner? Oh, let's check, this blog. Because you know their style, you also know that their recipe is going to work, which is a nice thing. It's like a reliable, just a reliable source, I guess. And it's really like baking is hard, but it's not as hard as people make it.
It can be so therapeutic.
It can be.
Like, especially, I find a lot of your recipes are like 10 minutes to 15 minutes to prep, and then it's like 10 to 15 minutes in the oven. So it's like a less than an hour of your day, and you've done something for yourself. It brings you a little bit of joy. And maybe if you're giving it to somebody else, like if you're making cookies for your family or the neighbor, like now you've gotten to like spread that joy out to someone else, right?
Yeah.
Like, I love baking.
Me too. Cakes are hard. Yeah. Cakes are definitely hard, especially like the assembling of a cake is very, even decorating cakes and stuff is like not my forte at all. But that's part of what I love about baking as well. Exactly what you said. It's just, it brings people joy. Yeah. Like it really does. I mean, I know I'm not saving lives over here by any means, but like if I can make people a little bit happy in the world, and the world's like pretty crappy sometimes, it just like, you give your neighbor some cookies. It's like, you just did a good thing. Yeah. Even though it's very small, and you did a good thing for yourself and for the other person. Yes. So,
and the smallest ones can usually spread the farthest, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I do think that, like, again, going back to it being like easy or hard, that's one of the things that I really focus on that on my blog, is like trying to make recipes as easy and approachable as possible, because I don't have formal training in baking. Like I just taught myself to bake, like I didn't go to culinary school. I don't know all the like terminology of really, scientific, like I don't know those things. And most people are like me. Yes. So I want people to realize that, like, or, if someone asks me like, can I use this thing instead of this thing? It's some things, yes, you cannot substitute, but sometimes it's like, go for, like an egg is an example, do you use a large egg or a regular egg? And I realize that those do make a difference. And one small egg can be much smaller than a large egg. But at the same time, when I baked before this, I would just use whatever egg I had. Yeah. And it worked out pretty well. And I just don't want it to be like a stressful. I think people stress about it sometimes and think it's so intimidating. And it's like, it doesn't have to be that intimidating. It can just be, like you said, therapeutic and fun.
I saw this really funny TikTok of someone who was about like people that have left reviews on recipe websites. Yeah. But the reviews are so bizarre. And you're like, this was so not the recipe's fault. And one of them was about like making carrot cake. And they're like, this recipe is absolutely atrocious. I'm not even putting it in the oven. Because they said they started off by deciding that carrots were too much sugar. So they substituted it with kale. And then they just like started reducing the sugar and everything. Stop. They tasted the batter. And I guess there was also like a heavy baking soda or something like that, or baking powder. So they taste the batter and they're like, this is disgusting. I'm not baking it. And the person responding was like, I mean, just to jump over and like gloss over the whole substituting carrots with kale, I wouldn't recommend. And secondly, like the baking powder bakes out. So like you're not going to taste it if you'd bake the cake, but like, thank you so much for your review.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It is wild. It is wild what people want. Yeah.
You sent me that one comment the one time of someone being like, dairy free with chocolate chips, my dietitian would disagree, or something like that. You're like, have you not heard of dairy free chocolate chips?
Yeah. And I mean, I think like to be fair, like I always try to give people a little bit of the benefit of the doubt with things like this. I'm like, I know that in some countries, like dairy free chocolate chips probably don't exist. But that person specifically, like, I know that they were, in North America where there is dairy-free chocolate and whatever. Yeah. But people will want to substitute. Like, in banana muffins, they'll be like, I don't like bananas. What can I use instead? And it's like, just a different muffin. Yeah. Just a different muffin, because these are banana muffins. So, like, if you don't like carrots in your carrot cake, don't put kale in it. that's not gonna work.
Yeah.
Like, so
just
things like that.
Cake.
Just find a kale cake. I don't think that exists, but like, bless.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
So yeah, there's a lot of really funny little things that
Yes.
you hear, but yeah.
Speaking of like tips and people switching recipes and changing them, what is one tip? I have a feeling I know the answer to this, but what is one tip you think every person should use when baking?
Yeah, you definitely know the answer because I have two. Can I do two?
Yes, please do.
Number one is use a food scale. I avoided using a food scale for, do you use one?
No.
Okay. I'm getting you one.
You have one.
Okay. You have to use it. Okay. You save yourself dishes.
Okay.
Because you don't have to use the measuring cups.
That's fair.
Like, it's honestly, that's the best
honestly,
part.
I reuse the same measuring cup. I'm pretty sure there's butter in my flour and everything like
that. Which is fine also.
But I'll measure because it probably helps.
It's honestly so much I just find it so much easier. Okay. So it's the most accurate way. And when I go to a website now that I'm baking something or even cooking something and it doesn't have those the metric measurements, I'm like, I'm going like, now I have to do the math. Like, it's like I have to get out all these measuring cups. Yeah. But I wasn't always like that. Like, I only started doing that later on in life.
Yeah. Before
that, I was just like most people in North America using cups, and it's so much more accurate and easy. It's easy. And like I could go on about this. Oh my gosh. A food scale is $10 on Amazon.
Yeah.
Like, they're not, affordable. Yeah. So they're not like anything crazy. Mine was literally, I think, $10. And, the flour is like the number one reason that people are like, oh, my cookies didn't spread, or they spread too much or whatever. And like, the flour is really hard to measure. A cup of flour scooped through the flour bag or whatever is like a quarter cup more than you need, or something like that. Like, it's crazy. So truly, that is the best way. Is if you ever learn one thing about baking, it is please use a food scale.
Okay. I'll go home and do that.
Okay. But I mean, obviously it still works if you don't, but
I think only because of the other method, which I don't know. Is this your second tip?
No.
What's your second tip?
My second tip's about cookies.
Okay. The one I thought you were going to say was the scooping the flour.
Yes.
And I use the tablespoon method now.
Okay. So, which is a good alternative. Okay. If you don't have a food scale, it's not like it's illegal to use cups. You know, you can still do it. It's just, I think people get really,
like, if you don't have a food scale, please don't come to my blog.
No, not at all. It's totally, that's why I put both on there. So like, if you only have cups, then use that. But if you are a regular baker and you struggle, like where you find that your recipes aren't turning out, definitely look into a food scale, because you might be measuring your ingredients wrong. That's all I'm saying. Okay. And I get a lot of messages on TikTok that are like mad about using cups or using grams. Like, people get mad about it, and I'm like, both are there. It's okay. We can all coexist. So you can use whichever one. But I just think food scale is like just a game changer. And I hate doing dishes. So that's fair. The less dishes I have to do, the better. But the fluffing your flour is also a very good tip.
Okay.
The other thing I was going to say was under baking your cookies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I heard a lot about that one.
So that's a big one, is people's cookies will come out and like, they'll be fine if they're like warm, but the next day they're like hard as a rock. And you essentially have to under bake your cookies. Like, when I take my cookies out of the oven, this is for most recipes, not all recipes. Usually they look like they're not quite ready, but they continue baking on the baking sheet. And that's how you get cookies that are like soft, like 3 days later or 2 days later.
Just followed that advice. With the the chocolate chip oatmeal.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think I set the timer for about 10 minutes. And I pulled them out and I'm like, these still look raw, but the edges are set. And she says specifically, once the edges are set, take them out. Yeah. So I take them out and like let them sit for 5 to 10 minutes, and they were perfect and lasted perfect for a while. So that is very sound advice.
Okay, amazing. I'm so glad. Yeah, it's a fine line. I mean, you could definitely take cookies out and be like, oh, these are fully raw.
Yeah.
But if you test one cookie first, like, that's something I tell people if they're not sure, if they haven't made the recipe before, you can test one cookie and then you don't ruin 8 at a time or however many you're baking. So that's a good alternative. But yeah, that's just the key to, like, people are always like, oh my God, how are your cookies so soft? Like, when I make them for people, and I'm like, I underbake them.
Yeah.
That's it.
And let them continue. It's kind of like a steak or something like that. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I don't cook steak.
Exactly.
I think that you're supposed to like let it rest.
Yeah.
And it continues cooking.
Yeah, you are. That is correct.
one question and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
So if someone's to go to your website, they're listening, and they want to find the best recipe to start with, what would you direct them to?
Oh, that's hard. Okay. So definitely my favorite recipe on the blog, I think, is my dairy-free chocolate cake.
Oh, yes.
It is my favorite thing ever.
That was your wedding cake, wasn't it?
It was my wedding cake. Yeah.
And it was beautiful.
Thank you. Thanks. I actually didn't decorate it. I just made the ingredients, and my aunt put it all together and made it look stunning for us. But it's, I think it's the best chocolate cake ever. And if you're not dairy free, you can also use, like, I've tested it. That's another thing I should mention. I do test all of my recipes with dairy ingredients. So that makes it
even more
one more time to, like, more expensive, and also one more time to test, right? Because I test every single recipe with dairy and without, because I have so many people who come to the blog who don't have dairy allergies. So I want to make sure it works, and then I'll make notes about if there's any substitutions that need to be made or whatever. So all are welcome at Cookie Dough Diaries. But yeah, so my dairy-free chocolate cake, you can make it with regular milk. It is tried and true, and it is so good. It tastes like the Matilda cake.
Now I want to go home and make it.
It's so good. But you just said you don't like baking cakes, so that's a hard one.
I don't like decorating cakes.
Okay.
I like making a cake.
Okay.
Sometimes they're easier than cookies because you just throw it all into one pan.
One bowl, yeah.
It's the decorating and the icing and doing a crumb coat.
Yeah.
I watched.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The crumb coat is so annoying. I have to do that.
Oh.
It's probably Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm with you. Even, like, having to do, like, a cake and then, like, a buttercream.
Yeah.
You know, like, two separate elements. It's
yeah.
Like, I know. And then number 2 recipe would be and this one's super, super popular, is my brownies. So there's a small batch recipe, which is like basically just a small batch version of the whole brownie recipe. Okay. So yeah, brownies and chocolate cake are like my faves.
Chocolate girl.
Yeah.
I love that you make half and small bakes or small batches of stuff. Even you did the cookies. I think you did chocolate chip cookies, like a small batch or something like that.
Yeah, I did, where it just makes like 8 cookies. Yeah. Sometimes that's all you need. Yeah. Sometimes if you're like one person living at home, like, you know, by yourself.
I don't have the freezer space. I don't want to eat like 2 dozen cookies.
Yeah, for sure. I did that today. I made you like a small batch muffin version. And they're so good. It just made like 8 muffins or something like that instead of however many. So yeah.
And for anyone listening, my personal favorite from the blog is the brownie blondies.
Oh yes,
I make those. Well, I haven't made them in a while because, again, eggs. Yeah. But they are so freaking addicting. Yeah. Like, that tray does not last for 24 hours in our house.
Ours either.
Like, if I have only now, like, I set myself a rule where I only make them if Dustin's already home. Yeah. Because otherwise I will eat the whole tray before he's home. Oh, and no. I feel so sick because obviously that's like not a substantial amount of nutrients.
Yeah, no.
That's usually the only thing I eat all day. But it's actually addicting. Yeah. Like, yeah. I've never found another bar or anything like that. That is so good.
Oh, thanks. I'm so glad you love them. Yeah, those are one I'm very proud of too. It's literally just a mixture of brownies and blondies. It's so simple, but so good.
It's so good.
Yeah. You also really like the vegan double chocolate cookies, right?
Yes. I like them because they're really convenient to make if I don't have like eggs or milk or anything like that. Like or whatever it is in there, they're super easy to make. Yeah. And if I'm like really having a craving, like a chocolate craving, that's what I go for. Yeah. So. Yeah, me too. I'm a big chocolate gal. Mm-hmm. Chocolate chip cookies will always have a place in my heart too. So if you're looking for chocolate chip cookies. I'm a big fan of those oatmeal ones that you made.
Yeah. Like the warm spices.
Yeah. They're just so well balanced.
Oh, thanks.
I'm going to be making those ones again.
I'm so glad.
Were they a new recipe to the blog?
No.
Or were you promoted them?
Yeah, they were updated.
Because I was like, I feel like I've made these before once, but I don't know.
And I also have a vegan version of them, but those ones have been on there for like a couple years now. So
I do love that you push the recipes out every week or every 2 weeks or whatever it is. Yeah, because it definitely brings me back to the old ones that I love again.
Yeah, it reminds you. There's too many recipes to remember that they all exist. Yeah. So and there's every week more and more and more. So I sometimes like to just update an old one and remind people, hey, I exist. Yeah, don't want them to be forgotten. So yeah.
Well, thank you. This is like our time. So thank you so much for being on this podcast episode.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.
Hopefully the next time I can have you back and we'll have like a studio
Yeah.
And then
not just my couch.
Yeah. I mean, it was your couch in my bedroom, and I feel like this was like a step up in the professional level.
Okay.
So, like,
no one sleeps here except for sometimes.
Okay. Only when fights are happening.
Yeah. Or Sundays or watching TV.
Lazy days.
Yeah.
You do have a great couch for lazy days, actually.
Thank you.
So where can people find you?
So at Cookie Dough Diaries, is it the Cookie? No,
Your
at
website
Cookie Dough
is
Diaries.
the Cookie Dough Diaries.
Yes, I should know this. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
It's only because I've been there so frequently.
Yeah,
it's
so
not frequently, often.
The website is thecookiedoughdiaries.com. You can just type in Cookie Dough Diaries in Google and it'll bring you that. And on Instagram, I'm Cookie Dough Diaries. On TikTok, I'm Cookie Dough Diaries. What else is there? YouTube.
Yeah, I think the YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube is Cookie Dough Diaries.
And then sign up for her email list.
Yeah.
So you always are getting cookies in your inbox.
Yeah.
It's a great way to wake up.
For sure. Yeah. Why not be the first to know about the recipes?
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Oh my gosh. I hope you loved that as much as I did, because there was so much more we wanted to talk about. So I'm hoping to bring her back if you guys are fans. Thank you so much for listening and for your support of the podcast. Every like, follow, share, download, all of it supports so much, and it lets other people know that this podcast is worth listening to. If you're not already following me on Instagram, you can do so at She's Doing All Right or at sarah.g.carter. Thank you so much for listening. You're the best, and I will see you in the next episode.